Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Today, many of us are also standing in our own battlefields. Not with weapons, but with stress, confusion, fear, relationships, and purpose in life. The Gita is not a book of religion alone. It is a manual for life. It teaches us how to make decisions when we are confused, how to stay calm in difficult situations, how to perform our duties without fear, and most importantly, how to understand who we truly are. Let's start from what is science of the soul.
Let's step directly onto an ancient, incredibly high-stakes battlefield. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to deconstruct a fascinating military briefing from thousands of years ago. We're looking at the Bhagavad Gita, specifically verses 1.6 and 1.7. Now, what we have here isn't just a religious or philosophical text. In this very specific moment, it is a raw, tactical assessment made by a military commander who is staring down a massive opposing army. We're going to break down the exact language he uses to size up the enemy and then rally his own troops. And by looking closely at this specific phrasing, we're actually going to uncover a literal masterclass in battlefield psychology. Okay, let's dive into this verse 1.6 translation. I want you to really imagine the scene here. The speaker is looking out across this massive field, and the sheer, crushing weight of the opposition is just starting to set in. He doesn't just casually say, wow, the enemy looks tough. No, he specifically names the heavy hitters. He points out Yudhamanyu, Uttamaja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. It's kind of the equivalent of a modern sports coach pacing the locker room, nervously listing off the star players of the opposing championship team. It's a moment of heavy, intimidating realization. The odds are totally stacked against him, and the commander is acknowledging it head-on. Section 1. Mighty Chariot Fighters. Let's analyze verse 1.6. Look exactly at who the commander is assessing here. He's basically doing a rapid threat assessment. By naming Yudhamanyu as mighty and Uttamaja as very powerful, he's cataloging the specific terrifying strength of the enemy's front line. But he's also noting their lineage, mentioning the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. You see, in ancient warfare, pedigree meant world-class training and unbreakable alliances. He's methodically going through the ranks and realizing, with dread, that every single person he points to is a massive threat to his own forces. Section 2. Great Charioteers. Let's look at the tactical threat.
And this brilliantly illustrates the macro concept here, Mahatratha. You don't need to memorize the ancient names we just talked about to grasp the strategic weight of this term. A Maharatha wasn't just a guy in a wooden cart. In this ancient context, a great chariot fighter was basically the equivalent of a modern armored tank combined with a fighter jet. They were highly mobile, heavily armed, elite commanders who could take on thousands of foot soldiers single-handedly. The speaker realizes he isn't just facing a large army, he is facing a unified wall of Mahatratha.
If we break down this specific language, you can really see the narrative of intimidation building. The text uses Vikranta to note their mighty, immense physical strength. Then it pairs it with Viryavan, which translates to very powerful, highlighting a commanding, almost overwhelming battlefield presence. But the real kicker here is the phrase Sarve Eva, meaning all certainly. The commander is looking at the opposing line and realizing there are absolutely no weak links. Every single commander on the other side is a physically mighty, deeply experienced tank of a warrior.
Section 3. The Strategic Pivot. Shifting to verse 1.7.
Well, a good leader can't stay paralyzed by fear forever, right? Asmakam tu. Literally but our. I want you to focus heavily on that word tu, which means but. This single two-letter translation signifies a massive psychological and rhetorical shift in the text. The commander has just finished listing out how terrifying and elite the enemy is. Panic could easily set in right about now, but then he says tu. He stops looking outward at the threat, and he pivots to look entirely inward at his own resources. This is the exact moment he forces himself and his listeners to stop catastrophizing and start strategizing.
Notice the stark contrast in this pivot. On one side, we have verse 1.6, the external intimidation, the overwhelming odds, the terrifying enemy. On the other side, verse 1.7, the internal reassurance, the focus on one's own qualified captains. It's a perfect contrast. As we move into verse 1.7, we're going to see exactly how a leader attempts to counterbalance fear with a structured, confident assessment of his own team.
Section 4. Best of the Brahmanas. Respecting hierarchy. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the term Dvija Uttama. The commander is speaking to his military instructor here. Even in the middle of a super tense battlefield assessment, he still addresses him as O Best of the Brahmanas. It establishes an immediate sense of hierarchy, deep respect, and order. By invoking this formal, respectful title, the commander is calming the room. He's reminding himself and his teacher of their status, their discipline, and their structured chain of command before he even begins listing his own troops.
Just look at the complete change in tone in this translation of verse 1.7. Gone is the awe and terror of the enemy's strength. Instead, we have a highly structured, almost administrative tone. But for your information, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. He is projecting total control. He is taking charge of the narrative. He is reminding his instructor, and frankly himself, that they aren't just some ragtag group waiting to be crushed. They have elite, highly capable leaders of their own.
Section 5. Leading the force. Structured competence.
So the crucial point is how these specific words construct a narrative of organized, highly qualified leadership. He calls his leaders Vishista, meaning especially powerful or qualified. These aren't random fighters, they are specialists. He calls them Nayaka, which means captains, emphasizing a clear, disciplined chain of command. He says Mama Sanyasya, staking ownership and real pride over his soldiers. And he does this all samjanya artham, for the information of his instructor. He isn't panicking at all. He is giving a deliberate, calculated briefing. He's countering the enemy's raw power with his own force's structured competence.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Why do it in this order? Why would a commander list the absolute terrifying strength of his enemies, hyping them up, right before he acknowledges his own captains? Is it a moment of weakness that he has to recover from? Or is it a brilliant strategic move to ensure his own forces fully understand the gravity of the threat before they engage? I want you to think like an ancient general for a second. By naming the fear first, you strip it of its power, clearing the way to confidently rely on your own qualified ranks. Keep that battlefield psychology in mind the next time you face your own insurmountable odds. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.